We're going to talk a little bit about our Future Orchard initiative. Going back to when it was initiated after a trip to Australia, 2004, then 2010. The objectives that we set in a South African context was to create an opportunity to focus on the future, to focus on the future orchard, to create learning experiences, and to galvanize the technical leading growers to look at what that needs to be, what we should be moving towards, and to create an opportunity to evaluate that in a controlled, relatively controlled process by having demonstration blocks, future orchard blocks in different regions, looking at different issues. So I think the objective of that was also to create a process of landing research, seeing it in practice before initiation and final adoption, is to test it in a commercial environment, basically.
So what future orchards do we have today?
Well, we started off with a process of inviting different groupings to participate, and we have 3 at the moment. We were going to have 4. First one was already established, is the Du Toit block. The second one is at Fruitways on the Greymead farm, which was looking specifically at M9 high density. And the third one under shade netting at Oak Valley, driven by the two-a-day technical team. So we had 3 major blocks. We were going to plant one in series, but the tree profile that we got, the nursery tree file, was not adequate to meet the criteria. Okay, so Vian, in terms of the key learnings out of the future orchards, starting with the Paardeklip one, what have we learnt, and where are we going to with those blocks?
Okay, I'm maybe going to look at M9 over all the rootstock sites, because I think there's interesting learnings from comparing the different sites to each other. Witzenberg is one of our milder climates, where one would expect M9 to do better, compared to Fruitways, where it's a bit harsher. And you know, what's evident is that you don't have one thing that fits everything. You know, the M9, with M9 you have to bear in consideration the sign variety and its vigor, and you also have to consider soil, you also have to consider the climate. Now it does appear that M9 can work under South African conditions, but I think there's still questions relating to its interaction with our climate. I think that's one of the main things. Okay. So it does seem that it can work, but...
So it can work. Nutrition was the key issue, managing your nutrition, managing your water, reducing any kind of stress.
Yes, and then absolutely non-negotiable, you have to get big nursery trees. You have to plant a 2-meter tree, preferably, because I mean, you're planting a dwarfy thing, you need to get 3.5 meters height onto it, or, you know, and planting a big nursery tree is a sure way to get there.
Okay, trellising was the other thing.
Yeah, that's
support system.
Oh yeah.
And that's across the board with all organ rootstocks that you're looking at.
Yes, absolutely. Because I mean, anchorage is usually poor. These rootstocks put the energy into growing fruit, which is what we want. But so they don't put it into structure. So we have to supply the structure. Right. We've got to plant the structure.
Okay, if we break it down in terms of let's go to the 222s. This is one of the first commercial blocks. What do we see?
Okay, I think
good growth.
We see really good growth. Now it's under nets, and we do get more growth under nets. Right. So that's also a key learning. We get improved fruit quality under nets. That's also another key learning. With CG rootstocks, I mean, it's new to our industry. There seem to be incompatibility issues which we need to look at in the future.
Which is a concern?
It's a concern, but it again speaks to support. Right. I mean, you absolutely need to support those.
So that's a prerequisite.
Absolutely prerequisite.
Good.
So something else I may add for the nets is that what's quite interesting is that new pests pop up. That's not a problem in the rest of the industry, because you really create an entirely new environment.
Okay, these are enclosed nets. So
completely enclosed. Yeah. So there's a project on the go looking at how net affect the microclimate under our conditions, because it really speaks to the way the insects are going to interact with the orchard, and also your diseases, what you can expect in terms of incidence of, let's say, apple scab, for example.
Okay, so one of the things that we did say is that the Future Orchards is a vehicle to drive research, to land research. You've spoken about one or two things that are flowing out of it. Looking at water usage under trees, under nets, I mean.
Yeah.
Is anything coming out of that, or we?
I mean, there's some information that's been learned from overseas. A lot of work's been done on nets in Australia, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel entirely. But our climate is a bit different from many places in the world. So there's some specific work that we will need to do, looking at dwarfish stocks in terms of their chill requirement, and the effect that has on the tree architecture, the ability to fill the space. I think we need to do some more work on integrated control of certain pests like apple scab, but relating also to your orchard floor management. If you want to gain the efficiencies of a new planting that utilizes a two-dimensional fruit wall structure, and the efficiencies you get out of spray efficiency, labor efficiency, then you need to have an orchard floor that also allow you to drive through at a certain space, a certain speed, rake your leaves potentially. So this is a very integrated approach.
So we're seeing, for instance, on the spray tractors driving on average between 8 and 10 kilometers, whereas we're at 3. That has huge efficiencies if the tree structure is accommodating. So there's all sorts of things that come out of that. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. If we look into the future, we're at a point in time, there's continuous learning that's coming out of the Future Orchards. We're looking to incorporate, talk to that a little bit, we're looking to incorporate other orchards with specific objectives.
Yeah, I think the idea is to ask specific questions. So Future Orchard doesn't necessarily have to answer all the questions. We're going to have more Future Orchards in the future, some of them asking very specific questions, like, for example, can we remove or reduce scab inoculum in the orchard to such an extent that we can actually manage down our fungicide applications? That would be a particular question addressed in a particular orchard of the future. Another particular orchard of the future question could be, how do we manage the effect of a lack of winter chill on our tree shape? In our climate, our trees tend to be more basal dominant, and how can we address that after planting? Do we need to pole our trees, or don't we? Can we plant large branch nursery trees, or do we have to plant whips like we currently do? That's the very particular questions I think that also the future can answer. But I think then you also have the super orchard concept, which you can maybe explain a bit on.
Which is the second. So we're in the process of planning what we would like to term our super orchard, which is really taking the learning experiences from a collection of people who've traveled around the world, who've looked at trees, looked at South African situation, to say, okay, let's take 1 hectare, 2 hectares. If we're projecting the next 10, 15 years, what does that orchard need to look like? So I think that's the next big project that we're looking at, and it's incorporating the multidisciplinary aspects relating to tree shape to meet all the requirements that we're looking at. So we're looking hopefully in 2 years' time to get to that planted. Otherwise we've got to order the trees in time, and we will then select a site. We will select an operator who will be able to do that, and it will be a combined learning experience where we will merge the thoughts of different minds to come up with different solutions. So I think that's really where we're going in the future. So we're looking to build it. It's a landing zone for research. It's a demonstration site. It's a place where we can bring growers, show what's been happening, they can visualize it. So I think from a science's point of view, we're excited about the possibilities that could come out of this process.
Inefficiencies in South Africa, that our labour is unproductive. But if you look at the typical tree shape in South Africa, it's quite clear why our labour is not as productive as they are in the United States. And I think in a certain way, low labour costs and the availability of labour in the past have been the thing that has held back actually our reforms in terms of tree shape. And so if you go to Europe, where you've been on, Poland, Australia, United States, the trend is to plant very narrow canopies, just a fruiting wall, where the labourer can reach at any position in the tree and pick the fruit. Spray chemicals can penetrate efficiently and easy, and the decisions on where to prune and how to prune is a simple decision. So, for example, if you look at this tree, I mean, and you put a labourer in front of the tree and you say prune, it's not so easy. But if you have a fruiting wall, it becomes much more easy and much faster to do. I mean, just harvesting the fruit, for example, now you have to reach into this tree and you have to try to get fruit inside. It's difficult. So we've actually been making it difficult for our labour by planting a different tree shape, looking at our orchard of the future, a fruiting wall on a dwarf rootstock. I think there's going to be so many benefits to growers in terms of efficiencies gained, but also particularly with regards to labour. We're going to make the life of the labourer so much simpler.